Whether you believe in the strange theories surrounding his disappearance or simply think of it as a bizarre case of human psychology, the story will likely live on as one of the most intriguing enigmas of the 20th century. Today, we will dive into one of the strangest stories that raised many questions about the man who disappeared in front of people. In 1967, an unusual event occurred in Argentina that has left both the local community and the world perplexed. The story, filled with mystery and intrigue, is about a man named Carlos Diaz, who vanished mysteriously before the eyes of the public in a scenario that defies belief. Even though many years have passed since this incident, the case of Carlos Diaz remains one of the most famous unsolved mysteries of the 20th century. What exactly happened that day? What is the enigma surrounding the disappearance of this man? In this video, which will also serve as an introduction to a YouTube video, we will explore the details of the case and attempt to uncover some of the secrets behind this bizarre disappearance. Carlos Diaz was an ordinary man living in Buenos Aires, the capital city of Argentina. He wasn't famous in the media or social circles, nor did he have any special connections or noteworthy reputation. He lived a quiet life with his family and worked a regular job, much like anyone else. In 1967, Carlos decided to visit a friend in a small town called Miranda, located just a short distance from Buenos Aires. This visit would set the stage for what would become one of Argentina's most famous mysteries. Carlos was a simple man, living in a modest neighborhood and leading a routine life. He worked in a private company and spent his free time either with his family or his close friends. There was nothing about him that would suggest that his life would soon become the center of one of the strangest events in Argentina's history. Little did anyone know that on this seemingly ordinary day, Carlos would become part of an extraordinary tale. On July 20th, 1967, Carlos Diaz was visiting a friend in the town of Miranda. They spent some time at a local cafe, and as the afternoon wore on, Carlos decided to take a short walk around the area. It was about 4 p.m. and the weather was sunny and calm, with little sign of anything unusual in the small town. After leaving the cafe, Carlos stepped out into the quiet street to explore the surroundings. According to several witnesses, Carlos was walking along a peaceful street when he suddenly disappeared without a trace. He was seen walking towards the corner of the street and then, in an instant, he vanished. The witnesses were adamant that they had seen Carlos enter the corner of the street, but after that, he was simply gone. There was no noise, no sign of a struggle, and no indication that anything unusual had occurred. The local residents, who had been around at the time, were stunned. They immediately began to search the area, but there was no sign of Carlos anywhere. His disappearance was as sudden as it was inexplicable. It was as though the ground had swallowed him whole. The confusion and mystery surrounding the event led to the authorities being alerted almost immediately. When Carlos Diaz disappeared, the local authorities quickly launched an investigation. The police conducted a search of the area and began interviewing witnesses. At first, they hoped that the incident could be explained by a simple crime, such as a kidnapping or an accident. However, as time passed and more evidence was gathered, it became apparent that this was no ordinary disappearance. Witnesses who had been nearby when Carlos vanished reported seeing him walking along the street, and then suddenly he was gone. There were no signs of a struggle, no unusual activity, and no apparent explanation. The area around the street corner was thoroughly searched, but nothing out of the ordinary was found. No objects were out of place, and no trace of Carlos's presence remained. It was as though he had vanished into thin air. The police interviewed everyone who had been near the area at the time of the disappearance, as well as Carlos's friends and family. Everyone was equally baffled. No one could offer a clear explanation for what had happened. The people who had witnessed the event all agreed that Carlos had simply disappeared before their eyes. Some even reported that he had walked into the corner and then simply disappeared without leaving any trace behind. Theories about what happened began to circulate, but there were no clear answers. Theories and explanations. What happened to Carlos Diaz? As time passed, various theories began to emerge regarding Carlos Diaz's disappearance. One of the first explanations considered was that Carlos had been the victim of a kidnapping. However, this theory quickly lost credibility as there was no evidence of a struggle, no ransom demands, and no sign of any criminal activity. Carlos's family and friends were interviewed, and none of them received any messages that could indicate he had been taken against his will. Another theory that gained some traction was the idea that Carlos had somehow entered another dimension or world. According to some, his disappearance might have been the result of a gate or portal opening, which caused him to slip into an alternate reality. This theory was fueled by stories of strange occurrences involving dimensional rifts or time portals, which have been part of urban legends for centuries. While many believe that this theory was far-fetched, it nonetheless captivated the public's imagination. The most popular theory among scientists, however, suggested that Carlos's disappearance could be explained by a rare psychological phenomenon known as visual distortion or visual disappearance. This theory proposed that Carlos might have experienced a momentary psychological breakdown during which he believed that he had vanished from sight. Such phenomena are extremely rare, but they are sometimes triggered by intense stress or mental fatigue. In this case, it was suggested that Carlos might have experienced a form of mental disorientation that led him to believe he had disappeared. Some researchers even hypothesized that Carlos might have had a psychological episode that caused him to become disoriented and confused. Such episodes can sometimes lead individuals to act in ways that seem completely out of the ordinary, which could explain his sudden and mysterious disappearance. The case of Carlos Diaz soon captured the attention of both local and international media. Newspapers and news outlets across Argentina began to cover the strange disappearance extensively, and soon the story spread around the world. The media frenzy only added to the mystery, with various reporters and investigators suggesting different theories about what had happened to Carlos. Despite the extensive investigation, no clear answers emerged. The police were unable to provide any new information. Witnesses who had been present at the time of the disappearance continued to offer conflicting accounts. Some claimed they had seen Carlos walk into the corner, while others said that they had no memory of what had happened in the moments leading up to his disappearance. It was as though the event had defied all logic and reason. Some even speculated that Carlos might have been involved in a more complex conspiracy, suggesting that he had been taken by powerful forces beyond the comprehension of ordinary people. However, this theory did not hold up under scrutiny, as no evidence was found to support it. The case of Carlos Diaz soon became a part of Argentine popular culture. It was discussed in urban legends, books, and documentaries, becoming a widely known mystery. Over the years, many have tried to provide explanations for his disappearance, from scientific theories to more fantastical ideas, such as parallel universes or time travel. Some believe that his story is simply an urban myth, while others remain convinced that there is a hidden truth waiting to be uncovered. The media has continued to revisit the case over the years, and Carlos Diaz's disappearance remains a subject of intense public curiosity. Some people have even come to see his disappearance as symbolic of the unknown or of the limits of human understanding. It has become a story that reflects the human desire to uncover the mysteries of the world and the universe, no matter how inexplicable they may seem. Despite the passage of more than 5 decades, the mystery of Carlos Diaz's disappearance remains unsolved. Theories continue to circulate, but no one knows for sure what happened to him. Some believe he fell victim to an extraordinary event, while others argue that he may have simply suffered a psychological breakdown. Either way, the disappearance of Carlos Diaz is one of Argentina's greatest unsolved mysteries. What happened that day in 1967 may never be known, but the case of Carlos Diaz continues to captivate the public's imagination. Whether you believe in the strange theories surrounding his disappearance or simply think of it as a bizarre case of human psychology, the story will likely live on as one of the most intriguing enigmas of the 20th century.